Hi everyone. So today's video is going to be about solving quadratics by graphing. So in the previous video we talked about solving by factoring, and actually that's what we're going to do to warm up here. These top three problems were on page 281 in the binder, so pause the video and make sure you get to page 281. And at the top of the page here we're going to just do three warm-up problems where the directions say solve the following quadratics by factoring. So let's take a look here. In number 1, I see x squared minus 9. Hopefully we're getting closer to the point where you're recognizing that quickly. That's a difference of squares. So my factors are x plus 3 and x minus 3 equals 0. And then I set each of those equal to 0, so my solutions would be, if I get x plus 3 equals 0, so a solution is x equals negative 3. And then x minus 3 equals 0 gives me the solution x equals 3. For example 2, when I factor this, there's no GCF, so we're going to set up my two parentheses. We'll do x and x. It's MAM. I want to multiply to 4, so that's going to be 2 and 2. And 2 plus 2 is 4, so it's x plus 2 squared. Well, the only solution there is negative 2. Right, if I set both those parentheses equal to 0, I'd get x plus 2 equals 0 both times. So my answer is x equals negative 2. And then number 3 here, it's x squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0. It's in standard form. There's no GCF, so we can go ahead and factor. And we get x and x. Let's see, 10 would be 1 and 10, or 2 and 5. So I want to make negative 3 when I add, so that would be minus 5 and plus 2. So x minus 5, x plus 2. So my answers will be x equals positive 5, because x minus 5 equals 0, so x equals positive 5. And x plus 2 equals 0 gives me x equals negative 2. Okay, so that's factoring. All right, so then what we're going to do is actually take a look at how that relates to graphing. So if you look down the page a little bit, we get introduced to the idea of parabolas. And maybe some of you have heard this word before, but a parabola is kind of a U-shaped graph. And that's what happens when you graph quadratic functions. So anything that's made up of, it's a polynomial with x squared, okay, you're going to get a parabola as the graph. Okay, if you look at example 1, these three graphs are all examples of parabolas, so you can kind of see that U-shape. All right. Well, we're told in example 1, the directions say these are the same equations as the three we just did above, and we're asked to find the x-intercepts of each graph. Okay, so the x-intercepts are the points where the graph crosses the x-axis. So in problem A there, we have an x-intercept at negative 3, 0, and an x-intercept at 3, 0. In problem B, I'm looking again, where does it touch across the x-axis? That's at negative 2, so I have the x-intercept of negative 2, 0. And finally in C, let's see, I have the x-intercept there at negative 2, and there at 5. So negative 2, 0, and 5, 0. So hopefully you're noticing a connection here. Look at your answers to, because the equations were the same, right? So problem A above was the same as problem A here. Let me zoom out a little. Or problem 1 was the same as A here. And notice the solutions to problem 1 were 3 and negative 3. And my x-intercepts were 3 and negative 3. And then in problem 2, my solution was negative 2. And my x-intercept was negative 2. And then in problem 3, my solutions were 5 and negative 2, and my x-intercepts were 5 and negative 2. See how they're the same? So, at the bottom of the page here, what relationship do you notice between the solutions in the warm-up and the x-intercepts from the graph? They are the same. Okay, so solutions, or zeros, or roots, those are all synonyms, but we'll talk mostly about the solutions, are also known as x-intercepts. Okay, so if you're going to find the solutions to an equation based on the graph, we're going to look for the x-intercepts. All right, so to solve a quadratic by graphing, find the x-intercepts of the graph. Okay. Now we haven't learned how to actually create this graph ourselves, so when we're doing these problems, we'll be giving you the graph and you just have to look for the x-intercepts. Or we might graph it on the calculator and then find the x-intercepts there. We'll do that in class together. All right, so when you flip to the next page for the classwork, what you're going to be doing again is looking for the x-intercepts, and those are your solutions. Okay. All right, that's all for this video. Thanks.